Hello folks, my name's Hypocrite and welcome to yet another episode of TNO in HOI4. So, the first thing that I want to say is thank you to all my supporters here on YouTube. I am really glad that you people are really interacting with me and you like to say what you want to get here on this channel. So what I'm saying is that you all were very vocal about new Samara series. I mean, not new, but you know, the continued Samara series. So yeah, I will try to recreate it as best as I can and to continue our adventure, well, pick up our adventure where we ended it, as well as probably I will do some more videos apart from HOI4, namely Banished. I also asked about Frostpunk, but there were more people for Banished than Frostpunk, so Banished will be the first. Frostpunk probably will appear here on the channel like soon. And what else? I also like to thank my new Patreon supporter, Marek, my friend from school. And I also want to say that if you really like my content and if you haven't subscribed yet, because most of my viewers are not subscribing to me, then hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to leave me some money, then the Patreon is also there, up and running. If you want to go to Patreon, then just click the link down in the description. So we are we are back at it again. We are in Magadan, and I already want to say that there was, I think, an update, because Japan has a different name. At least that's what I see now. I haven't really noticed it before. So if there is anything off, then we'll probably will have to I will have to play through Magadan again, through all the content that I have already played through, because you know how fickle is HOI4 and updated mods in general. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So we have stopped on our secured position, and from this point onward we are going to go with a mercenary force. So let's go. The Tsarists in Chita have agreed to a temporary truce, and they are even willing to cooperate in a limited capacity. The Americans have been appeased by our promises to reform, together with the Bill of Rights promulgated in Magadan and sent to American agencies. From overseas, the support of emigres has become ours, as Wąsiacki has deigned to join us in the crusade to liberate our sacred homeland. Our position is firm, secure. It is now time to solidify these advantages as Matkowski's ideas take root in the Far East. Before the party in Magadan proceeds to its holy task, perhaps it is time to stop and let the results of these treaties simmer for a while. Let the funds overseas flow into the coffers of the party, with American support ensuring steady gains. The limited cooperation with the Tsarists in Chita will continue as we raid Rodzajewski's followers from both sides. Soon, Matkowski will use all that he has gained for his next step, a Siberian army. Okay, so focus is completed. And where is the event? Here it is. Magadan Free Radio, broadcast 45. The Siberian hunters sat around the table. On it was a radio, an American brand, powered by batteries instead of regular electricity. They had bought this from an admittedly sketchy merchant selling American goods in the port of Magadan. Still, the surface of this thing was shining with polish, particularly American brand of burnishing that made cheap things look luxurious. They turned the dial to Magadan Free Radio, whose frequency they had scribbled onto a piece of paper earlier. The mix was better this time. As usual, they played Russian patriotic songs, with the Siberian hunters singing and humming along to the melody, despite having no idea as to what the lyrics were. Instead of cutting entirely, the radio quieted as the talk show began. "Welcome to Magadan Free Radio," a coarse voice with some lip smacking, but not as much as before. "Your only source of news in the Far East. I'm here with my co-host, Vasily. Hello," a smooth baritone with some genuine cheer in how he talked now. "Tonight is another cold Siberian night, but rest assured, the MFR will go nowhere. What is our subject tonight, Sergei?" "I hold in my hand a genuinely genius American invention, Mr. Vasily, a deodorant, truly magnificent." Sergei uncapped the deodorant, making sure to be as audible as possible. Pop. "Smell that, Mr. Vasily?" And what does it do, Sergei?" "It is just the thing. It blocks body odor." Sergei stopped as if applying it all over the skin. "This deodorant, imported from America, should fit all you Siberian savages out there in the woods." The room was silent. "Mr. Vasily, why are you staring at me like that?" "Looks like they still need work on their presentation." "Oh, then 10 stability, nice." "Oh, actually we are very stable." Alright, so what do we have next? The Siberian army. The agreements that we have secured with the foreign powers, mercenaries and the czarists have brought us valuable time and given us room to breathe. Now the party can turn its eye towards the chief means of its holy task, the army. While the party is no pacifistic organization, its militant wing so far only consists of trainees and militia drawn up from the streets and outskirts of Magadan, given guns that are either crude or non-functional. If the push west is to happen, we need to reform them into a proper professional army. We have several options for how we can approach this. The first is to adhere to a doctrine suited for a local police force. After all, Russians know how to best fight on Russian soil. The second is to request American advisors, whose experience in the proxy wars of the world could win Russia as well. Last is the option of adopting WerBell's techniques in assembling our forces. His expertise will not disappoint us. Whichever we choose, the grand task continues. Making progress. In the months since Matkovsky's scathing inspection of the Magadan garrison, things seem to go from bad to, well, surprisingly good. Matkovsky's generals and administration had taken upon themselves to figure out some way to improve the true RFP's fighting ability. The answer was simple, mused one senior officer. When we realized we couldn't use conscripts, we bought soldiers from abroad instead. Indeed, mercenaries and military advisors, state-sponsored or otherwise, have been slowly but surely streaming into the frozen port of Magadan to not only pad Matkovsky's army of ill-suited conscripts, but to train them as well, to crack the whip and bring them, kicking and screaming, into the world of professionalism. The fat ones were now skinny, the malnourished ones healthy. All of them had a semblance of fighting spirit for the first time ever, and the guns, while still archaic, were at least cleaned and maintained properly. Training, as bare bones as it was, actually began to prepare the conscripts and their mercenary counterparts for the realities of modern warfare in the frigid forests and marshes of Siberia. All this, of course, was stacked onto a very long and expensive bill that Matkovsky had to pass off to his administration. He was confident that there would be something for them to pay the mercenaries with. After Matkovsky's second inspection of the troops, which, like the first, was kept as a surprise, he once again called a meeting with his general staff. As they filed in, worried that the new inspection was not enough for an improvement from the original, many nervously fiddled with pens or reports, while others looked anywhere but where Matkovsky stood. As they all assembled, the Vozhd spoke. After this second inspection, he said in his normal reserved manner. "I want to say good job to all of you." Many were surprised. "I know that the task I assigned to you was not an easy one, and while we are far from perfect, I am pleased with the progress that we are making. The path to seek out mercenaries and foreign support was not the one that I would have expected, but it's clearly working, and I will be meeting with some top advisors about now to increase the numbers and effectiveness of these foreigners." And then, finally, the rare "thank you." Dismissed. Now we are getting somewhere. Okay, so now we are going, of course, with the mercenary force. While others advocate for a national army with differing approaches to warfare, the infamous mercenary WerBell presents perhaps the most audacious plan to reform Magadan's armed forces. He proposes an army beholden not to any national identity, but only to money and pay from the highest bidder. He desires an army of soldiers without borders, coming from all around the world to fight for the most prominent cause of freedom, this side of Siberia, Matkovsky. Although flattered, Matkovsky has reservations about this idea. If we choose to go down this path, we will invite every mercenary we can with the liquid money from our benefactors in America. The party will permit its current formations to exist in their current form and fill or extend them with mercenaries as they become available. Perhaps the most radical path of army reform, the decision to continue on this path is not to be taken lightly. While it is necessary for our undertaking, many in the party itself doubt WerBell's good intentions. Well, I don't think that he has bad intentions. Okay, the mercenary force is now completed, so let's go with soldiers without borders. Matkovsky has made his decision. WerBell is now free to pursue his program for army reform. All standing units of the party not currently under his control shall continue to exist, but will be joined with the mercenaries that will be arriving soon from around the world. Matkovsky believes that WerBell will live up to his trust that has been placed on him, and the army of soldiers without borders will become the deadliest force in the Far East in short order. In the meantime, WerBell will be pulling out all the stops to ensure that the Far East is the prime place for a mercenary to find himself in. From all the corners of the globe, troops will continue to arrive, pledging to fight in the name of Matkovsky, the champion of freedom and democracy in Russia. All who hear the call shall heed its message, and the world's mercenary underground will burn with enthusiasm while WerBell continues to fan its fires. We'll get Soldati bez granic, which grants somewhat less organization, but with more recovery rate, more attack, and minimum training level -5. And I have some manpower to spend, so let's see which one is the cheapest. Okay, so Nacjonalne Opolczenie is the best, I think. Okay, one division will probably do good. Alright, so soldiers without borders are now finished, so let's go with the best guns money can buy. The new members of Matkovsky's army are here, heeding WerBell's call to arms in the far eastern reaches of Russia. An unprecedented number of mercenaries have arrived on our shores, ready to build a new army. The issue now is not one of numbers, but of how to equip these professional soldiers. Though the Siberian factories are doing all that they can, a deficit of weapons and supplies remains. Luckily, WerBell has a plan. Mitchell WerBell is a man who knows the underworld, and it recognizes him. By pulling a few favors and greasing a few palms, the legendary mercenary can rectify the weapon shortage with ease, he claims. If Matkovsky agrees to it, he promises to fill the armories of Magadan with not only an astounding quantity of weapons, but also with state-of-the-art ones, not the cheap local productions. Moreover, he vows to Matkovsky that he will lead his army to unite Russia come hell or high water, a vow that we must be careful to hold him to. And the Madagascar war is on. I'm wondering who will be the winner. Okay, so we bought the best guns. So let's go with the back of the truck. WerBell's promises have borne fruit. Seemingly out of nowhere, the weapons have materialized to support Malkowski's cause, at a rate so low that it is almost not profitable. Though his motives are still a mystery, he doesn't appear to be a threat, yet. However, the shortage remains, and though it isn't as severe as before, it might be wise to keep a cache of arms for a rainy day, as it rains in Siberia. It rains in Siberia most of the time if it's not snowing. Like a magician pulling one trick after another out of his head, WerBell has another solution to offer to Matkowski regarding the shortage. He knows the smuggling routes in the Bering Strait, safe from the watch of the Soviet remnant navy currently stationed in Kamchatka. From the south, he also knows his ways in Japanese Manchuria, hidden from the sight of the Imperial Japanese Army. These routes, he reckons, will be sufficient to end the arms shortage currently plaguing us. We have little choice than to listen to him. Some motorized, some support, anti-tank and towed artillery. Actually pretty nice. Okay, so I am a fucking idiot. I wanted to make a new division, a new motorized division, because we were going to get some motorized. So I went to division designer and I made a new template. But I forgot to use duplicate. So right now I am with no army experience whatsoever and with one motorized division without any equipment. As far as the focus is concerned, I will get some of that equipment, but that's not what I wanted to do. But we'll go with it actually, because whatever. And we will make some more as well. Cool. And the Yasuda crisis is on. Alright, so focus is completed. And now let's go with ready at last. The reform of the Siberian army is complete. We are now ready to confront our old adversary, Rozayevsky, currently residing in Amur. Our army is ready to mend the old spirit of the RFP at long last. Some of our most seasoned veterans have been dreaming of this day ever since Matkowski's capture of Magadan. The party shall be won again, after all these years. Matkowski and his officers will order all personnel to stand by and prepare for the operation against Amur, effective immediately. Our victory is assured, so long as everything that we have planned goes our way. The only wild card on the table is WerBell, the mercenary that Vonsiatsky brought with him. Hopefully, we have kept him on a tight enough leash that he does not do anything that would interfere with our plans. But some among our ranks note his rising power and doubt that our current measures are enough. Nevertheless, the operation must go forward. But before I press start, I'm gonna save the game. Okay, let's go. Okay, this is a funny one. Magadan Free Radio, broadcast 60. So, Vasily, tonight we have something new to showcase to the audience, the coarse voice said. Our poor listeners cannot see into this office, but let me describe it to you, loyal followers of the Vozhd who just tuned in tonight. A pause and a thought. Whoops, sorry, dropped it. Another pause, before the same voice beaming with excitement. This is an American-made M1911, courtesy of our friends in the CIA. Please don't wave that around, Sergei, a smooth baritone said, evidently Vasily. That gun is loaded. A sigh. Apologies, dear audience. It appears my friend Sergei is a bit of an idiot. A chuckle. Don't be so negative, Vasily, Sergei said, getting more and more excited by the minute. This weapon has safety. Hear that? The pull of a trigger. Click, click, click. Nothing happened. It's because the safety is preventing the firing mechanism from engaging. Fancy and clever people, these Americans. And what does this weapon have that Russian does not? And what does this weapon have that Russian ones don't? Well, you see, Vasily, a clatter as Sergei set the pistol down on a surface somewhere. This gun has the power of a rifle, condensed into a compact and easily carried package, making even the least armed of our soldiers dangerous. A pause. Let me pick that up again and show you how it's done. Please don't wave that around. Tinnitus rang, a discordant sound that seemed to shatter any resemblance of coherence. What the fuck did you do? Just another day in the office of the MFR. Yep, those are funny guys. A report for Langley. Transmission 1. Agent Mason, currently stationed in Magadan. Subject: on the training and equipment of the Matkowski forces. A review. Content. Before we came to the town of Magadan, acting at the behest of the Congress as well as the Department of Defense in good favor to the leader of the RFP, Matkowski, most of the armed forces consisted of fascist militias with little to no experience in actual warfare. Their equipment was in a similarly poor state, with most soldiers equipped with creaking, almost non-functional rifles like old Arisaka models and Mosin Nagants, dating back to the days of the Great War. A good fit for an army of wax models in a museum perhaps, but not enough for a host would they intend to fight. As the Vozhd, Russian leader, humbly put it, a total crusade to save Russia. We commenced training as soon as we pinned down the RFP's situation. That is where we encountered another problem. The nepotism ingrained with the officer corps of the RFP was so prevalent that men who could barely hold the weight of a rifle bore such high ranks as lieutenant, captain or even major. Pressed on the issue, the Vozhd agreed to fire these people immediately, much to his credit. He also approved the building of several officer schools to whip up the higher ranks of his army into shape. The reports we have received from the front lines indicate good results. The border clashes against their neighbors have indicated a good increase in performance, regardless of victory and defeat. We will continue to monitor the situation and issue reports whenever possible. Mason out. Spectacular growth. Soldaty bez granic. From the outset, WerBell's goons were different from the regulars of the RFP militias. In Magadan, they walked around town, their expensive gear strapped to their bodies, flirting with the girls and ladies they saw along the way. They seemed not to have a care for Russia. It was just another playground for them, a vacation, a holiday in a desolate land where they got to shoot the natives. Smith, no given last name, in particular came from South Africa, his hands itching for the trigger of the gun, his ears for the thrill of gunfire, his head and brain for the conduct and raw barbarity of combat. WerBell wasn't lying when he said that his gear was going to be good. His M16 strapped to his back was the meanest piece of lead splitter this side of Russia. The RFP militias did not have them, only given old US M1 Garands instead, for they were not Smith. The fields, savannas, plains and jungles of Africa made themselves known through his copper, sunburned skin. He had all the reason in the world to be cocky. When his folks back home asked him why he had gone into the business, to find a lady, came the answer. All who truly understood Smith knew that he wasn't in it for love, but the thrill of war and money. He could see the Russians eyeing his gear with envy in their eyes. He smirked at them and winked. Every time he smoked, they would marvel at his tidy, clean, well-rolled cigarettes. Once in a while, he even offered them one. Warfare was a trade, and business was good. Leaning back against a wall in a random part of the podunk town, he took one of his fabled cigarettes out and lit one. For a backwater and deserted place, Magadan was pretty good. Not on the level of Blemfontein, but pleasant enough. However, his heart was never there. Out west, closer to lines of the Tsarists and Rozayevsky's loyalists, beneath the blazing gunfire and artillery bombardments, was where he belonged. With a puff of smoke, he threw the cigarette down and stepped on it. It was time for action. Smith reporting in. Let's see where we can improve our development. Maybe schools? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Alright, so the focus is completed. So now probably it will change into a new one. The death of Vonsiatsky. Mr. Vonsiatsky, are you there? Dmitri rapped at the door. Mr. Vonsiatsky, the Vozhd is waiting for you. It's no use, Dmitri. Ivan said, sighing and catching his breath. I've been at this door for hours and I haven't gotten any answers yet. Time to try something else, Dmitri thought. Kneeling, he stared at the keyhole of the doorknob. He could do this. Taking out a lockpick from his pockets, Dmitri gingerly inserted it, working as to leave the machinations inside undisturbed and unharmed. The door had to open somehow, and jamming the keyhole would only make it harder for everyone. Might even require an axe, he chuckled. Ivan was about to protest, several times in fact. They could have just asked for a spare key, but Dmitri wouldn't hear of it. The door clicked. Dmitri stood, containing his jump at the very last moment. See? He said to Ivan, who gave a dry smile in response. Dmitri turned the knob, but the door wouldn't budge. Bolted from the inside, goddammit. He kicked the door in a fit of rage. Ivan tapped his shoulder, gesturing him to move. Brandishing an axe, he swung it several times against the door, as bits and pieces of wood fly in every direction. At the very last moment, when Ivan was about to give up, the door gave way. Mr. Wąsiecki, are you not well? Ivan stopped mid-sentence. Laying on the floor and clutching his chest was Wąsiecki, his eyes glassy, his face pale. He was dead. Sometime in the evening, the phone at Matkowski's phone office rang. We defer our payment to you, friend Matkowski. An ultimatum from Yakutia. We won't back down. Probably, I think that we'll be actually able to defend because there is one division right here on the border. So, probably we'll be able to defend, yeah. The mercenary coup, something that we have waited for. Ivan and Boris did not like their new assignment. Transferred from the political wing of the RFP to the army right before the eve of the operation, they were, as their instructor put it, dead weight. An officer handed them their bolt-action rifles and told them to stick with the rear guard, where the chance of survival was the highest. There was no danger here, and the Siberian woods were quiet, the wind whistling between the trees, and the air cold as ever. You think the Vorst will let us back? Boris asked Ivan, who was squatting beside him, watching the surroundings while smoking a flimsy cigarette. The only reply he got was a listless shake of the head and a hush. Ivan knew his stuff, or at least showed that he wasn't in over his head. The hand that gripped the sick shook. It could be the air, could be genuine anxiety and terror in the face of war. A figure passed ahead. In the dirt trails they were watching. A mercenary. It was apparent from the gear they carried. Proper camouflage, an assault rifle, a belt chock full of grenades as well as other miscellaneous tools of warfare, and, most importantly, the attitude. The man walked forward without any concern of war or worry, his footsteps lighter than the bravest man in the RFP. However, he had no reason to be here. The front lines were where he belonged, not here. Halt, Boris said, unslinging his rifle and pointing it at the mercenary, who did likewise. Ivan followed suit. Turn back, the front lines are over there. The mercenary said nothing and shot at Boris. It hit, and Boris was thrown off his feet. Ivan fired back, nailing the mercenary in the shoulder. All over the lines, incidents like this flared up, and the operation was called off in a panic. WerBell coup has begun. So, hindsight is 2020. We won't. It won't succeed, or the mercenary gambit succeeds. Matkowski retires, and Soldaty bez Granic becomes the ruling party. Yup. Okay. Republic of West Alaska. Yeah, that's Alaska, all right. I mean, okay. But I think it's the best moment to end this episode. I hope that you've liked it, and be sure to leave a like, a comment, and to subscribe to my channel. Also check out the link for my Patreon. The lowest pledge is €1, so if you can spare the money, then I'll gladly, take it. But in all seriousness, I really thank you for your support. I also want to say thank you to my first patron, Marek. And I will see you guys in the next episode. See ya!